and we are live on BerryFlow Upstream number 40. Here with the cast, we've got Alex Bass, Brandon Orr, editor-in-chief of crackberry.com, Mr. Chris Blaze, as many like to call him. And as well, we have a special guest. He's stayed up early tonight to come on air with us on Upstream. Steven, how are you doing?
Yes, I'm fine. A little bit tired, but I'm fine. It's 1 a.m. Crazy night.
Oh, we definitely appreciate having you on. What is your website? Who are you supporting right now? Is it Adixar BlackBerry, or do you call it BlackBerry 10 FR?
So first of all, I want to thank you, James, for your invitation, and I'm really proud to be here with you. So, as you maybe know or not, I'm leading a French website about BlackBerry, especially BlackBerry 10, which is called Adixar BlackBerry in French, and we are very, very happy to work for this website and share our passion for this brand.
Absolutely. I've seen some of you guys' podcast, actually, and they seem to have a lot of viewers, so it's very, very cool to see. You guys have a lot of support over there in that nation. It's kind of awesome.
Yes, very awesome to see, not only in France, but also in Africa or in Canada, to have people really read us, comment, go on our forum, watch our video. It's very happy to see this, and it's give you the motivation to continue and write about BlackBerry, talk about.
Especially sometimes, it feels like the whole kind of scope of everything is narrowing. So at least there is still some passion out there. So it's very good to see. I want to get started, and this is going to be kind of over in your neck of the woods. Talking about Vodafone UK, they're bringing the BlackBerry Leap to business users. This is very interesting that they came out early and said that this is going to be a device specifically geared toward those business users. What do you guys think about it, like a corporate fleet type of device at that price point? I still want to see this kind of available for consumers, but it seems like it is going to be one of those really, really focused devices. I know Chen was very adamant on what this device was for.
Yeah, a lot of people are arguing like, oh, it should be sub 200, it should be lower than 250 at least. Look at the Z30. The Z30 off contract is 270 now, like whatever. Realistically, at the end of the day, the Z30, BlackBerry wasn't making money on it, especially at these prices. So comparing the Z30 to the Leap isn't really a good thing to do, because first of all, when the Z30 is gone, then it's gone. They're not making any more. But they actually need to make money on the Leap, and it is so focused on, they want it to be a business phone. They don't want, it's not a consumer phone. People need to understand BlackBerry has reasons of doing what they're doing, and they're focusing on business security, and this phone is literally meant for business. So the pricing is completely fine, $275. It'll probably drop down, sub 250 eventually or something other. That's a very reasonable price for what you're getting to be on the secure BlackBerry 10 ecosystem and software and QNX and everything. So I think it's fine for its purpose, but consumers, the people who are getting mad are consumers, but it's not a phone for you. That's like people complain about the Z3, for example.
I just don't understand why they wouldn't, make it available at least, like not marketed towards the consumers. But I mean, if someone comes into a store, a Vodafone store, you tell me they're going to deny that sale? If someone says they want to have a Leap, it looks like that's going to be the case, and I just don't understand why they would just shut down that channel. It's obviously, it could probably be a Vodafone work there shutting down that channel. They kind of just want to build up that market there, that business market, but to me, it doesn't make sense why you would just shut down that whole channel there, potentially selling a device.
Yeah, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. I just found it funny that it actually, like, the information mirrored exactly what I said on the last podcast. I was like, yeah, you'll be able to get it in the UK on one carrier, but only with business accounts. And that was exactly what was announced. I'm like, really?
I think they're making business decisions based off watching this. Honestly, they're coming down to it. They're like, that's not a bad idea, Blaze.
It's a bit silly. I mean, realistically, again, it's not a device for consumers, and even John Chen pitched it that way. So, I can sort of understand it. However, at the same time, we're only talking about one carrier out of how many carriers in the world? There's many other carriers who could potentially pick up the device and readily sell it to you just because you simply want it. So
Yeah, they might have not even wanted to stock it, for instance, and maybe BlackBerry said, well, at least this is supposed to be a business market phone, at least offer it to businesses. Like, it might have been an agreement that they didn't even want it in their stores, so this is like the best thing BlackBerry could get out of it, maybe, too.
yeah. And realistically, from a carrier perspective, in terms of how devices sell, they could be essentially, they didn't necessarily order like 10,000 of them you have on hand. They're just basically placing orders for the devices as they receive them, and then they just ship them out. Like Sprint used to do that with the Q10 when it initially launched. Like, you couldn't actually buy a Q10 in a Sprint store. It was all based off of the orders. If you really wanted one, you walked into a Sprint store, you placed your order for one, and they shipped it out to you. That way, they got to maintain lower inventory levels, and it didn't cost them anything. They were still able to provide the device without having, massive inventory.
Yeah, and that's the thing that that's the thing that's questionable about this is why wouldn't they just provide that as an option? If somebody wants to go into the store and place that order, it's up to them if they want to wait longer to get it, but at least they make the sale like that. Like I said, yeah.
I don't know. I just think it. I get the whole discussion. I just think that's kind of it's a simple point, because the way that the UK works, you can buy devices pretty much unlocked anyways.
Yeah.
At some point in time, some third-party retailer is going to pick up these devices and be able to go ahead and order them. So you'll be able to pick one up if you really want to pick one up. I don't think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
And who knows? It might be something that initially opens up where they allow the enterprises and corporates to buy the device just for business purposes, and maybe later on, later in the cycle, they'll offer it in stores by a pickup or whatever. Steven, do you think in your region over there that the Leap is going to do well, especially at that price point that is coming in, kind of like a mid-range device? How do you think it will do?
I'm very. I don't really think the Leap will be a very good success because of its pricing, and when we compare it to the Z30, his specs are not really good, and but it's some kind of good project to talk about the distribution. Yes, I think it's a very important problem for BlackBerry. It's a shame to see carriers like Vodafone to sell the product only for business. With this, with carriers like Bouygues Telecom, which sell the Classic and the Passport only for business consumers, and people were very disappointed. But if you really want to buy a BlackBerry, you have shopblackberry.com, and you can buy it on Amazon or other reseller like this.
So at least you guys have those options, right? I know that. What are some of the key regions for Shop BlackBerry? I know they do Dubai, France, Germany, Canada, and the U.S. Those are the main ones, right? I don't think they extend beyond that with Shop BlackBerry as of yet. Do they cover Africa at all? I don't believe they do.
No.
No, so Africa's not covered. So they have to go to the carriers. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Well, maybe they could
They have
expand
to
that.
expand.
Well, I definitely hope the Leap does well. I think it's one of those devices that I'm actually kind of interested in. I've been playing with my Z30 more and more, and there's something about the form factor. BB10 was just so built for all touch, in my opinion. I mean, it works very well on the Passport, which is also kind of an all-touch device as well, considering the touch-enabled keyboard. But I'm hoping the Leap does well, and I hope the businesses are actually appreciative of it when it comes. We've had a lot of chatter in the community about this OpenSSL freak vulnerability and how it affects basically everything in BlackBerry's portfolio in terms of software. We're talking blend, BES, devices. And Blaze had also kind of mentioned before the stream that this has been something that's rather malignant, right? It's been here in a vulnerability for years, and it's just now coming to light. And ultimately, no one's really been affected by it as of yet. So kind of like the Leap, one of those things that is what it is, BlackBerry's already kind of pushing out a patch for it. Do you think, right, that the OS being subject to carrier availability is going to kind of tarnish their ability to actually patch these things. Because Apple, they got kind of lucky. 8.2 rolled out right as they were able to patch this OS. So they had an OS already coming out, basically. And BlackBerry now had to kind of work backwards because they just released 10.3.1 and now have to patch it.
Yeah, that's what I don't like. It's like they already have a fix for it, and it's already going through a carrier, but it's a carrier. I don't know where it downloaded from, but getting it from through SecuSMART, it was actually through a carrier. So they've actually pushed the fix out for carriers. Then you have these people writing articles that BlackBerry is not secure and blah 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 blah. But at this point, it's not SecuSMART, whatever. It's not BlackBerry's fault. It's at this point, it's like Verizon and AT&T. They're so slow because they need to refine it and make sure everything is okay, then push it out. But it's just screwed up that it's going to end up hurting BlackBerry at the end of the day, and they don't have any control over it. It's just kind of frustrating. I don't know.
I don't know. I think people just take it too far, anyways. I mean,
Yeah,
as
it's not a big deal.
as you said, the update is already on devices. Those who enjoy installing leaks and stuff like that, and even official OSs, like the update is out there for BlackBerry Z30 officially. It was spread across a bunch of carriers already. Austria, UK, Canada, the US, God knows how many by now as well. But additionally, if you're really that concerned about it, the operating system is there available for installation. You just have to go ahead and update it. Would I like to see it pushed out to everybody all at once, and nobody has to worry about it, nobody has to complain about it? Absolutely, but this is not how it works. And, like James said, I was talking about it before we hopped on the podcast. I was never affected by this issue. I had no problem with it. Nobody was robbing my bank accounts and my web pages weren't being stolen or anything like that previously. So I'm not necessarily too worried about how long it actually takes to get it out there because, I'm not affected by it anyways. Yes, it's a problem. I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just saying that I had no issues with it before. It existed previously, and I was never prone to any effects from it. So,
Yeah.
nothing will come eventually.
Yeah, I think BlackBerry is going to get a lot of flack for this, just for the sake of, BlackBerry's really been tooting their own horn for the past couple of months, saying that they're the most secure option. And although this type of attack, it's a man-in-the-middle attack, so it means you have to be on the same network, and the scenario has to line up just right for it to work and exploit that vulnerability. But I think it's just I think personally the media is just.
It's not only BlackBerry being affected by this.
Well, and that's the thing. It's not
The
only
media's making it
BlackBerry.
sound like they are, though.
It's not only BlackBerry, but the thing is, you have to realize that BlackBerry's the top of the food chain when it comes to security. So it's gonna be like, for instance, Black Phone. That phone had a security vulnerability, and it wasn't that big of a deal. Like, there wasn't like hundreds of articles about the Black Phone being hacked. But when it comes to BlackBerry, because they do make a point of, and they do prove that they are the most secure solution out there, they're gonna have more flack against them for it.
But hey, we'll get an update for BlackBerry Blend eventually. It's a hard way to get an update, but we'll get an update because that's on the list of affected services. So.
Bug fixes and performance improvements. Yeah. The standard copy and paste changelog. But hey, I'm excited for it. The OS is already out. Have any of you guys loaded it up? I personally have not loaded it up yet. Yep. I'm just so lazy in that regard. I'm still on one of the older ones. Steven, have you loaded it on your Q10? The 2558?
No, we just received it on some Z30 in France, but nothing on Q10, Q5, Z10, Passport. Some Classic received this update, but for carrier validation.
Yeah, still waiting in that regard. What about you, Alex? Have you loaded up on any of your devices?
Yeah, I mean, it's on my Z30. It's not really, it feels quick, but every kind of time that you upgrade, it seems like it's quick, and everyone claims, oh, it's 10 times faster than the other version. But Android, Android app seems to be running fine. Yeah, Android apps seem to be running fine. Everything seems to be running fine. The only problem that I've had for kind of a while now is I'm missing the mobile or data management. There's data management within settings, and it's just missing. And apparently, a few people have been experiencing it, and especially people on Verizon seem to be experiencing it. And then people are saying, well, maybe Verizon's trying to remove it so people go over their data, and then it's just this whole conspiracy, which isn't true. But I don't know how to get it back. I tried sideloading the settings bar file from an older version that worked on it. I just know I had it one day. It's showing up in my search menu, and it's not in my settings, though. It's just very weird.
Good question. Did you actually?
So, are you able to access it through the search?
When I click it through the search, it just opens up settings. It acts like it's about to open it up, but it just opens settings.
And it's not in the settings to actually invoke from there. That's very
Yeah,
interesting.
what were you saying, Chris?
And you said that
You updated to the Leap. Like, you didn't actually get an OTA from Verizon or anything, did you?
No, I did. I've just been using SecuSMART. I don't know what you want to call it. SecuSMART. I've just been using that for the past like 4 or 5 leaks, and I definitely had it working on one of the leaks. Like I set up data management and I was using it, and then I just realized that one of the leaks it was just gone, and now everything moving forward is just gone. So maybe just a random bug that I'm experiencing.
Loaded it up on all the devices I have. I haven't had any issues with it. I mainly, of course, use the Passport, and I still have the data management tools. SSL break fix is there.
Yeah.
It works fine. Android apps load quick, so I don't. Oh, and here's the other thing that I realized is that how people were complaining about the notification, the volume of the notifications.
Yeah.
Usually, I honestly didn't notice it. However, after I loaded 2558. I noticed it then because my notifications were freaking loud afterwards.
Exactly.
Wow.
That was the same thing because I essentially have my SMSs almost muted because I'm part of a group SMS that no one will let me leave. So all of a sudden when I started hearing these messages that I normally don't hear, I'm like, all right, the volume's definitely up. And then I start going to type. Even the haptic feedback, that noise that it makes, that was louder than normal too. I had to turn everything down. So I don't know if they just like bumped up the speakers or what, but.
Yeah, I don't know.
Maybe they'll have fixed Darius's qualm where the aux out wasn't loud for him. So we'll have to see how maybe we'll get him on that shortly here. Glad that the fix is available for OpenSSL, so people that may have been potentially affected by a man-in-the-middle attack can actually have their comfort.
I'm sure there's many more fixes in there, obviously, because that's part of the reason as to why it's appearing anyhow, because it solves some of the issues that were problematic with the initial 10.3.1 update for everybody else. So there's probably a lot more fixes in there. I know people have been going on the forums and picking out all the individual bugs, but there's definitely more in there than just the SSL fix. So if you haven't updated to it, you should probably give it a go and see how it works out for you. Especially now that the autoloaders are all there. Download, one click, done.
That's my favorite way to load OSs these days. It really is. And it's easier to pronounce autoloader.
Yes.
So about a week from this coming Friday, actually, I believe, next Friday, we're going to be able to speak on BlackBerry's earnings, and it's actually end of year and fourth quarter results. Lots going into this. We know Goldman Sachs was kind of they put that BlackBerry was not going to be able to hit their 500 million software target, and that kind of dropped the stock. I think it was like 8%. Interesting. You think that on this earnings report we're actually going to get some solid numbers in terms of the some of the volume on devices, even if their projections are always just better than expected or great. They never get too specific. I wonder if maybe at the investor meeting afterwards we might get a little bit of insight into like how the device business is doing. Not necessarily numbers, but I'd like to know if they're at least hitting their own targets. They talked about 10 million devices. I'm just interested to know. What do you guys think they'll talk about?
I think they'll talk about where they are, in terms of profitability and everything like that. But I think the days of getting actual numbers out of BlackBerry are done. Like, I know everybody wants it. Everybody keeps asking for it. They're like, well, how many devices were sold? How many passports were sold? I think those days are done. You're not going to get those numbers anymore. Almost like their subscriber-based numbers. We're not going to go ahead and give them anymore. I mean, obviously, those people who specifically need access to it will be able to go ahead and access it.
But as a public traded company, don't they have to give data about how they're doing? Like that's part of being a
They
public
can
traded company.
the way I view it is that they can give the data on what the revenue is on handsets sold, and I mean it might work in their advantage if they're making, as we've heard rumors, that they're making higher margins on devices. So even if they do sell fewer devices, but the profit on those devices actually increases, it might actually be a good idea to include the total number of devices sold and then relate that to increased profitability on devices. So it really comes down to whether they are seeing those higher margins on devices. But I think the main point of view for these earnings reports is going to be revolving around that shift towards the software sales,
Yeah.
which is what Goldman Sachs was predicting would be lower than what the market is expecting. And to be honest, the past few earnings reports, BlackBerry has thrown a curveball and one surprise area of the earnings each time, but they have missed on a number of, you know, consensus numbers. So we'll see. It'll be interesting to see. I'd like to see them meet those numbers. If they meet numbers, it'll be really good for the stock. If they just meet
Yeah,
the numbers.
it was kind of funny because I watched a video that I don't remember what site being on or something or other, and it was Prem Watsa versus Goldman Sachs. So right after Goldman Sachs went and started saying all this crap about BlackBerry and saying moved it from a hold to a sell or whatever he did, he downgraded it, and that's when the stock dropped. Then it was kind of like, well, there was Goldman Sachs saying this, and then they interviewed Prem Watsa to see what he had to say about it, which obviously it's kind of a weird thing because he's an investor, a very high, stakeholder in the company, but he said, we're more excited than ever that the path that BlackBerry is going, and they have faith that, it's about IoT. So the fact that BlackBerry will be integrated into everything in the future, there's so much more upside than just talking about, where they're at right now or whatever. So it's like the upside potential of BlackBerry is higher than it could have ever been. And that's what Prem is really pushing towards. So I'm assuming this earnings call might not be the best, but really, BlackBerry, we're not talking about that. We're trying to get them past from being dead, and they're past that. And then they have upside potential coming, but people need to start integrating IoT into things. Refrigerators that have, smart chips inside them that do things and make them connected, household homes connected. That's when BlackBerry is going to start, profiting from this kind of stuff.
That running BlackBerry 10.
We'll get there. Hey, my refrigerator is very offended that you called it non-productive. Can you imagine we have SecuSMART chips inside of our laundry machines and things of that nature?
The way I view BlackBerry earnings reports these days is that it's really there's two groups of people that are really looking at these earnings reports. You're looking at the people who are looking for short-term profitability, and I think those people are going to be let down at this earnings report. But I do think that what we've seen in the past few earnings reports and what I think we'll see in this earning report is that there is quite a bit of substance for a long hold shareholder, someone who foresees holding the share over a longer period of time instead of a few months.
Yeah, I mean, it's bulls and bears. It's literally what the stock is meant for, long-term holders and short-term holders, and there's always going to be someone fighting to try and get people to immediately sell short-term just so they can buy it up. There's a constant game going on. But that's
for one day. I mean, that's all that you really need to have a outlook on it. You can see who is basically for BlackBerry and who is for BlackBerry. You can see people who automatically just want to buy it, short sell it, and then that's it. And then you can see the ones that are there for the long term because they see the larger picture.
Yep. Toward that end as well, I think Canso investment in Canada actually converted I think it was $300 million in debt, and they brought that over into shares. So there's definitely kind of a groundswell there for BlackBerry support. I think they're going to be able to hit the numbers. I think there's going to be a little bit more upside in revenue because of hardware, which is going to be a surprise, and they may fall a little bit short on the actual software side. But it will balance out, and I think overall that's what really is going to show well for the company, that Chen is stabilizing it on all sides. He's literally creating a software business, right, and expanding it, trying to double it in size and volume and revenue. So definitely interesting as they kind of push that forward. I'm hoping the quarterly results next Friday are positive for them.
Here's
I'm sure
the
Alex, as an investor, wants to see some upside.
Here's the thing, though, from my point of view, like, as not an investor, just an individual who cares about the BlackBerry services. It doesn't matter what they report. At this point in time, it doesn't matter what they report because, as we said, it's a long-term goal that they have as a company, and they're acting on it. Like, we can see that. Chen said months ago that he was switching over and making everything a part of his ecosystem, and we're watching all of that unfold month by month by month. And when it comes to analysts and stock watchers and investors and so on and so forth, I've come to the conclusion personally that it doesn't matter what BlackBerry reports at this point in time, because no matter what, there's always going to be those bulls and there's always going to be those bears. Some people will take the information that BlackBerry has and they will say, okay, they're absolutely on the right track. This is the long-term strategy. We can see a future here. And then you're going to have the ones that have always been beating the same old drum over and over and over, who will insist upon looking at the information and just simply saying, yeah, BlackBerry's dead. They're done.
Yeah, like BlackBerry is going back into the tablet game. That's not true whatsoever, but that was some of like the titles that people were putting on their posts. It's like, are you insane? This is
And it comes down.
I thought they were getting back into the tablet game.
It comes down to what side do you want to believe? Do you want to believe the people who are extruding the information and saying that BlackBerry is dead, or do you want to believe the people that are, saying that BlackBerry has a future? Or do you just want to form your own opinion based on the information that's provided? Personally, I don't listen to either sides. I take the information and I see that BlackBerry is still alive. They're still producing handsets.
Big partnerships.
Products. They're still announcing partnerships. BlackBerry has a lot going on for a company that was supposedly dead like 4 years ago.
And let's not forget, even if they do meet the market consensus on what everybody expects them to earn, it doesn't necessarily mean the stock is going to go up either, because they're still not in the they're not in the clear, if that's the case still. So you're still going to have the naysayers who are going to be like, oh, they met targets this time, but we'll see how long that lasts. So, I mean, you really just, like you said, Blaze, you got to look at the long term and see if you think, if you see the value in the company through the long term based on what the numbers are telling you and based on what you see the company doing right now.
Yeah, and the stock market is just like a crapshoot in general. I think it was actually kind of interesting. Box, like Box.com, they just had an IPO recently, and their numbers were really good for what they were claiming. So essentially, there were rumors of what the numbers were going to be, and their numbers were much better than that. But there was like a typo in the numbers where they thought it was going to be, so they released the numbers, and they appeared to be a lot lower than they were expecting, and the stock just got pummeled. And they're like, oh crap, no, like you guys screwed up, and they fixed it out. But you're talking about a stock that went from $27 down to $16, back up to $20, and like just the stock market got screwed up over a typo that happened. It was like, oh my god.
A lot of tech companies, even if they have some decent earnings reports, will often see their stock go down, because a lot of these short-term investors are looking for that home run hit that everybody will be like, oh, I got to buy the stock, right? It's a gamble in that sense.
I hate the stock market, to be honest with you. I hate the news about it because it's just, to me, as someone who isn't invested in anything, I just look at it and I'm like, really?
Yeah.
Why are you guys all so crazy? I'm like, I just don't understand it. I can't, no.
It's like a bunny with a carrot in front of its face. That's how I look at it, really. But so we have the quarterly results next Friday. I wanted to talk about BBM because BBM is one of those things all of us use, yet we're all semi-frustrated with, right? Steven laughs, so I'm glad he agrees with us, right? There's so many things we want for BBM as a messaging platform. You know, we want it to be expansive. We want BBM money. You know, we were promised, quote unquote. There was a press release from BlackBerry 2013 that voice and video were coming for iOS and Android later this year. It never happened. These are still things and expectations that kind of the user base, the consumers that BlackBerry generated with the transition to BlackBerry 10 are still waiting for. We're looking for that core company experience from BBM. We're still missing some of those. So I put out an article, it was an editorial, in regard to 4 chat wallpapers that none of us have access to except users in Indonesia. And I found it very interesting because it parallels that story with kind of how the BlackBerry experience is across all devices in terms of BBM. So if you go to Windows on BBM, you have a fully native experience, whereas you go to Android, you have this kind of like patchwork experience. It's a little bit of BB10, a little bit of Android. iOS just recently got its redesign. And then not all the different aspects of BBM are across all the different versions, all the different platforms. So on Windows, it's missing some features that it has on Android and iOS. So it's all very mix and match right now, and I wish it had a little bit more cohesion. In terms of the wallpapers in specific, wallpapers, I'd buy more wallpapers than I would stickers. And I've bought a lot of stickers, right? So I feel like you'd want to monetize the whole shop, not just small aspects of it. So what do you guys think about the overall cohesion? Steven, I want to start with you. What are some of the things you want for BBM?
What I really want for BBM is the same experience on all platforms. So you talk about BBM video on iOS, Android, and Windows Phone platform. So I think it's something a lot of persons are waiting for, and we don't know when BlackBerry will release these features. What? So we are talking about some premium features. I really think BlackBerry need to improve these systems because I'm not really. It's not really attractive things. I didn't use what it was. I'm sorry.
Tu peux me dire en français, je peux le traduire si vous voulez.
No ads, and you can personalize your pin. I think it's a good idea to monetize BBM, but BlackBerry really needs to add new features like this and more attractive.
They definitely need some more attraction. And maybe some of the attraction can come with a lower price as well, you know? 'Cause some of those things are pretty expensive, especially to be paying them monthly. I definitely can agree with you on that. Blaze, what are some of the things that you're looking for in BBM? I know channels is one of your big ones.
Yeah, I mean, obviously I want to see some improvements to channels, but we've beaten that horse dead. Right now, I'd like to see basically, as Steven said, everything equal across the platforms. I think that would be the most beneficial start, because right now it seems like a little bit of a broken ecosystem, because you can't transition directly from iOS and Android and Windows Phone or BB10 and get the exact same experience. Now, when I say the exact same experience, I'm not talking about, you know, the look, the visual look of it or anything like that. That's all perfectly fine if they want to, you know, adapt the platform to each specific device. That's perfectly fine. However, I want to see the same features on all the exact same platforms. That's where it seems like it's a little bit of a broken experience for right now. You can't transition to Android or iOS and have the exact same things as what you get on BlackBerry 10 through all of the stuff that is available. The other thing that I would like to see, and I understand why it exists and why there are some, you know, problems with it, but I would like to see, I guess it's pretty much the exact same thing, but the availability of stuff that is available for purchase. Like, for example, in Indonesia, you have the wallpapers, as you mentioned, from your editorial, but you also get stickers and stuff like that. Like, why aren't these things available globally? And again, I understand why it's like that, because some of it does come down to licensing and such. For example, the Star Trek stickers. the Star Trek stickers were available on iOS for probably at least 4 months before they actually filtered over to BlackBerry 10. And the only reason why they ended up getting over there is because I mentioned it to somebody, and I'm like, why aren't these stickers available? And eventually they got synced over, and BlackBerry 10 users were able to use them. But like I said, I had that on an iPhone for 3 or 4 months previously. Like, it's those sort of little things that I want to see improved upon. If you're going to roll something out, roll it out to everybody. Give everybody the exact same experience. Give everybody the exact same options and such. And I say that, but again, I understand why it's not necessarily possible. One, the licensing restrictions and such like that. And the other side of that is that, when you look at BlackBerry 10, it's BlackBerry that is making those changes on the BlackBerry 10 platform. So they can add whatever they want to the BlackBerry 10 platform. However, when you move to Android or iOS, they don't have the exact same options available to them because Apple places their own restrictions on what apps can and can't do. Same with Google. Google places their own restrictions on what apps can and can't do. So I understand it, but that doesn't mean that I don't still want to see it. I want to see that stuff improved. If you can't produce that stuff in such a way that it's uniform across platforms, then maybe there's it should be looked at as to whether or not that feature should actually be introduced in the first place. You know what I mean? At the same time, I do like the fact that some of the stuff is actually only applicable to the BlackBerry 10 platform. So it's kind of a toss-up,
It is. It's definitely just a crazy disparity between some of the different things. Like we have screen sharing on our video platform, but you can also get that on other platforms if you go to BBM meetings. It's just kind of like almost like they kind of haphazardly kind of brought it all together in a very short period of time.
It's broken. That's the only word that I can come up for it. It's a broken experience because not everything is exactly the same, and you have to go through different procedures in order to get to the same end result across the different platforms. So I'd like to see that essentially improved. And again, if they can't make it the same across all platforms, then maybe they shouldn't really introduce some of those new features.
Yeah, they definitely need to be a little bit more deliberate. So I agree with you on that one, Blaze. Alex, Brandon, are you guys lusting for anything in particular on BBM? I mean, we've talked about some of the big ones, video, and obviously some refinement and making everything a little bit more cohesive. But are there any features that you guys are actually really looking for? I know there's other messaging platforms that are already initiated this, but I'd love the ability to be able to type in one language and it hits someone else's device in their own native language, so that I can, cross talk. I can talk to someone in Chinese, yet speak to them in English, kind of. And I think with the adaptive keyboard and how it already works with multiple languages, there's a lot of potential there. But again, you'd have to build that kind of processing engine to be able to do those kinds of translations on the fly. Something I'm interested in. What about you guys? Are you guys interested in anything particular?
I mean, honestly, it's kind of a weird answer because I'm just interested in them figuring out on Android, iOS, and Windows Phone so I can actually use it more. Like, the fact that I'm even stuck in an SMS group message right now is so frustrating. They don't want to remove me from it. And it's like, if it was just a BBM group, I could individually mute that BBM group and I'd be great. But the fact that none of my friends want to use BBM, they would rather, some of them have iPhones, some have Android, and they're just doing a group SMS group chat. We shouldn't be using freaking SMS in this day and age. So get your act together on the other platforms, and that's what I want done. And then obviously channels for me, I feel like it could be a great thing, and my channel is growing somewhat decently, and I really wish I could utilize it more instead of posting on Twitter and all these other social networks. Channels really is a great thing, but just that's been beating a dead horse with that whole subject too. So,
You're beating a dead horse with a dead horse at that point,
yeah,
right?
exactly.
What about you, Brandon? What do you desire for BBM in terms of growth?
I agree with Steven. I mean, the big question mark about the video chatting, it seems kind of, BlackBerry has it BlackBerry to BlackBerry, and BlackBerry came out with BBM meetings, and it's like, well, what's going on with cross-platform individual chats. Is that ever going to come, or is it going to be just an add-on to BBM meetings for cross-platform chat? And I think that needs to really be addressed, especially since before meetings and everything came out, they were talking about bringing video chat cross-platform, and it's kind of like that was swept under the bed or swept under the rug, so to speak, right now.
Under the bed.
I think the meetings was them basically saying that they couldn't do it on BBM. So this is an alternative solution, because when you think about it, BBM meetings isn't even necessarily powered specifically by anything from BlackBerry. They use a third-party service for it. And the app, even the third-party service that they use, is available on BlackBerry World. So realistically, there's nothing specific about BBM meetings that is, platform specific for BlackBerry itself. You can download the Zoom app on iOS. You can download it on Android, and you can download it on BlackBerry 10, or you can download BBM meetings for Android, BlackBerry 10, and iOS. It's still all the same thing. The only thing different about it is the pricing structure. There's nothing different in terms of the apps or anything like that. The Zoom app itself is available on both platforms. They just took the Zoom app and
put a BBM icon on it.
Yeah.
Be that as it may, there's still some cohesion that needs to be worked out, because you've got users on BlackBerry 10 who have video chat between users on BlackBerry 10, and it's not like they don't want to speak to people on Android and iOS. And I mean, if it's little things like that, like you were talking about, native experience on Windows Phone, native experience on iPhones, and then Android people are left with some, horrible mixture of a whole bunch of different things, and it runs slow based on what
I think you just defined the Android.
Yeah, exactly. So I mean, it's just a bunch of cohesion that needs to be worked out. I want to see more of a smoother experience, cross-platform for all the features, and I do realize that some features have to be platform specific just because that's how they work. But I do think there is room for that. The last thing I will say is I would like the ability to change or add administrators to channels on your mobile device instead of having to go to a web portal.
Yeah, that's definitely something we need, even if it's through a web portal, but it needs to be seamless, I need to be able to go in there, not have to switch to desktop mode or anything crazy to get the full experience. I was always interested in the little GIF maker that they have on channels for the desktop, where you can create like a little looping, GIF image. Why is that not in the app?
Yeah.
Or, why don't I have that ability within the BBM application as well? Definitely a lot of things that we're kind of interested in for BBM. Again, wish it was just a little bit more cohesive an experience, as Stephen had mentioned, for all users, no matter where they are. So, Stephen, let's bridge us into the latter end of this cast. Let's talk about the Secu tablet a little bit, and it's a very kind of crazy partnership. What are some of the companies that are collaborating on this?
So on the Secu tablet, we have IBM working with SecuSMART and Samsung to build a secure tablet. I really think it's something. There is two visions. First, people would have seen a BlackBerry tablet using SecuSMART technology, and in the other side, SecuSMART will take the benefit of Samsung fame on the tablet market. So, what do you think of this partnership between SecuSMART, IBM, and Samsung?
My personal opinion on it is that BlackBerry jumped on SecuSMART, right? Like SecuSMART has been looking to expand and grow, and they've been building, I believe, right off of the needs of the German government. So the German government says, we need secure communication. SecuSMART says, here, put this chip in your phone. And now that same kind of desire, I feel, is expanding to different types of hardware. And right now there is no high-end, tablet of a big form factor for which they can deliver to those corporate users in the government. So I think they're using, I believe they're already using IBM for their MDM platform. So it just makes sense when working with this specific customer, the German government, that they can work now with Samsung, which is some hardware that they're interested in. They've got the MDM support behind for the secure app wrapper. and then BlackBerry able to even bring in their services with through their subsidiaries. So I really believe a lot of these things in terms of SecuSMART and these other platforms had already been in the mix, and BlackBerry wanted to take them in to accelerate that growth and put their name along with what SecuSMART is doing. Those are expensive chips. I mean, people think like it's, BlackBerry doesn't really have a lot to do with this tablet, but ultimately they make the tablet, right? Because you can put a Samsung tablet onto IBM's MDM, but it's not as secure as it would be unless BlackBerry had their hand in it through SecuSMART. So I think at least that they're working to definitely fill their customers' needs, and I think it is literally direct to these governments that are wanting that type of experience and have it to be in a secure manner. What about you, Blaze? What do you think in terms of the Secu tablet? Is this a playbook too?
No, it's not a playbook too. Well, maybe in terms of like who adopts it, it might be, but other than that, it's not a playbook too. Like you said, the majority of that relationship, I do believe, was, formed essentially before the BlackBerry acquisition even went through. So SecuSMART was already working with Samsung and IBM to be able to go ahead and provide this as a solution. So you have the SecuSMART chip, you have Samsung Knox on board, and you have IBM who is doing the app wrapping, and it just so happens that BlackBerry owns SecuSMART now. So of course they get their name attached to it. So the headlines that proclaim BlackBerry has released a new tablet aren't necessarily 100% accurate in the representation, but it's a $2,300 tablet plus. No consumer is going out and buying this tablet. And if you're thinking that, then you're kind of off your rocker for even beginning to think about that process. So
the playbook was overpriced when it came out. The SecuSMART tablet.
You're not going out and no BlackBerry fan is going out and buying a Secu tablet just because they want to go ahead and support BlackBerry. It's not going to happen for $2,300. But who knows? I mean, it could be big in the enterprise, and when I wrote up the post about it, that's what I said. This is why tablets were obviously on John Chen's mind, because at that point in time they would have been planning the press release for it, so they knew about it and they knew that it was coming. And I don't know. It seems like there is room for an enterprise-based tablet, and maybe SecuSMART, Samsung, and IBM and BlackBerry are onto something here, because as I wrote previously with whether or not BlackBerry should be even thinking about a tablet, there's plenty of other people out there willing to fill that void in the enterprise space for a tablet. The same folks who created the Black Phone are reportedly working on their own secure tablet for enterprise. They've essentially pivoted their whole marketing scheme towards enterprise now. So not only do they have the Black Phone that they're working on, the Silent Circle people, they have a tablet that's going to be based on enterprise solutions, and they're presenting that. So who knows? Maybe IBM, Samsung, and BlackBerry and SecuSMART are all ahead of the game now, because that tablet that Black Phone is supposedly working on is still just like a beta thing at this point. They don't have anything to present. Maybe the Secu tablet is ready to go to market right now. So
I just find it very interesting that what makes this tablet extraordinary is BlackBerry's contribution through SecuSMART, that added hardware layer. And I just find it very interesting as well that BlackBerry is not only supplanting software onto their competitors' hardware, but they're literally also supplanting hardware onto their competitors' hardware through the use of this chip. So I wonder, again, when we're talking about the sublimation of hardware across different competitors and different OEMs, is this also what we're seeing in terms of the slider, where now Samsung is giving hardware to BlackBerry to use on their hardware? It's kind of the same kind of trade-off, right? So I wonder, in the terms of that agreement, with their focus on enterprise, is it more of a licensing thing, or are they actually kind of trading more equally than what we know? It'd just be interesting to see like the depth of that relationship.
The slider, but I was talking about them last night with a friend of mine, and honestly, this is absolutely not based on anything, but I believe that there's more to that slider than what everybody knows at this point in time. When you think about Samsung and you think about their hardware division, you think about all of their processors, like you look at the, the Galaxy S6 Edge Note, and you look at that slider and everything. I personally believe that there's probably more going on in that slider from Samsung than just the display technology. We all seen the picture, the blurry video, and everything else. We know that it has a dual curved edge display, which sounds absolutely crazy, whatever. Whatever you think of the display, I do believe that there's more going on with that specific device than just the display technology. I do believe there's, I'm going to throw it out there, maybe, if you think about Samsung and how they've been operating lately, they want to get ahead with Qualcomm. They want to basically, they want to be Qualcomm at this point and have their processors and everything. So at that point, you have to start thinking about the Samsung Exynos chips. You have to think about Knox. You have to think about Bez. You have to think about all of that stuff. And what if instead of BlackBerry working on the BlackBerry 10 OS themselves, because we know that it runs on Qualcomm now, what if they're working with Samsung to be able to go ahead and make BlackBerry 10 run on the Exynos chips? And the only reason why that you've never necessarily heard about it as of yet is because BlackBerry isn't doing it themselves. They've handed that solution off to Samsung. What if it's not being done BlackBerry in-house? What if they've handed it off to Samsung to be able to go ahead and develop it, and they're working with Samsung? Remember, they slid the playbook out pretty quietly, so they're very, very capable of getting hardware and essentially a new OS out there without anybody noticing. And especially if they moved it into Samsung's house, they had that sort of agreement, then it's a possibility. I think, like I said, there's probably more going on with that slider device than just the display technology. I think, anyways. It could be a conspiracy theory. It could be wrong. I don't know, but that's just what I'm thinking. There's a lot more going on than just that.
It would make a lot of sense, honestly, for that kind of strategy to take place, because they've already got a reference platform with the S6, right? They have that hardware, and even when we saw the Z10 come out, it was basically an S3, right? In terms of its internals. So if they were to build a BlackBerry Edge or something of that nature, right? Where it's basically a BlackBerry branded Samsung device through and through with their own custom OS. I think it could be pretty powerful. Thanks for not muting yourself on that, Alex.
I thought I did. I clicked mute so quick. Oh my god.
What are your thoughts, Brandon?
Remember, just one last thing. If you remember back, going through the operating systems, like the early days, 10.1, 10.2, 10.3, all of that stuff, there was rumors and speculation about an Exynos device being tested at some point in time. I forget the actual name of it, but it's out there. They basically, from the files that were pulled out of the OS, at some point in time, it was rumored that they had an Exynos processor running on at least one of those devices, and who knows what they have in the lab. So,
They probably have everything. They probably got a little bit of everything over there.
It seems like BlackBerry and Samsung are very complementary. Samsung with the hardware and BlackBerry with the security and the software.
Yeah, I view this more as I view this partnership more as a marketing technique. You've got BlackBerry, which is the popular kid on campus now, who's got that household name for security. And as we see, Apple's made a partnership with IBM, which is also, fairly well-known firm. And then you've got Samsung, who's really trying to break into that security market. And then they're trying to leverage BlackBerry's good name in security as a way to kind of edge their way in, and vice versa. As you said, Blaze, we might see some hardware synergies through that aspect. But I do think this is primarily more of a a play because of BlackBerry's cachet in security instead of, really trying to shift over resources from BlackBerry over onto Samsung. But,
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are kind of saying that maybe Samsung's trying to get off of Android, so they're going to want to go on to BlackBerry 10. But you can't take a company who is leading in the Android market and just go switch them off into BlackBerry 10, because that would probably be the end of Samsung if you just did that.
Yeah.
And the ironic part is BlackBerry 10 is trying to become more like Android. So if it might eventually make sense for Samsung to make the switch, but that's only if BlackBerry 10 is literally like full Android, but it has the security of BlackBerry underneath it. And realistically, that move is just a weird. It really wouldn't be much different then anyway. But for people thinking that Samsung's just going to jump into bed with BlackBerry in that sense, I don't think it's really going to happen anytime soon. Maybe in the future, but there's definitely a lot more to this partnership than they at least made it sound initially, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're seeing more every day.
I just keep thinking that BlackBerry can't keep on producing BlackBerry 10 devices without some sort of
Yeah.
differentiator in between them. Like, if you put BlackBerry 10 in a different device, you go from Z30, Leap, Passport, 10, whatever, it's still all the same at the core. It's still BlackBerry 10 at the core. There needs to be a differentiator, and I think if they were working with Samsung, that would be one of those differentiators that would possibly help them in the long term. So what's a good differentiator than basically taking a Samsung processor and putting it in there? That's something that's different from everything else that has been out there so far. So,
but then it brings into question, why did they even make a partnership with Foxconn then? If
they probably weren't
expecting. Because they signed a 5-year deal with Foxconn, and I mean, if they're trying to get into bed with Samsung, now I mean that kind of makes that partnership. I don't see what the point of having that partnership anymore.
I think if you can play some of your partners against each other, it allows for more competition and better results for you at the end of the day. I want to circle back on the Samsung thing, and I know Alex does too. When we look at BlackBerry, when we look at like 2013, when the transition that they went under, a lot of talent from BlackBerry got up and went to Samsung. A lot. I'm talking BlackBerry's chief information officer is now the chief enterprise innovation officer at Samsung. When not at CES, at Mobile World Congress, who did they bring on stage? A guy who worked at BlackBerry for 9 years on behalf of Samsung. There is a lot of synergies that can be had here between these companies in terms of their shared vision for not only the Internet of Things, but for enterprise as well. So, Alex, what did you want to toss in?
Yeah, no, it's just that I think I'm hearing some echo. I don't know what's going on, but I think that essentially having Foxconn, they might use them for some of the maybe cheaper end devices. They might have still a spot for them regardless, but there's definitely a spot for Samsung, whether it's just the higher quality BlackBerry devices, if that's what they do end up going with, or whatever it ends up being. So it might not be directly like Samsung would want to create the exact same phones that Foxconn would be creating with that kind of thing. They might have a spot for both of them. Samsung might only want, it's just test the waters too. There might just be one phone device, and it might be the slider that they're testing the partnership. But they really needed some type of partnership back then to get the hardware out of their hands, because they were really screwing themselves over by having all the hardware internally. So the Foxconn deal made sense for what happened, and there might be a reason that it's only a 5-year partnership. Maybe they could have made a 10-year partnership or something crazy, and maybe 5-year was the minimum they were able to have with that company. So
five years what Chen signed on for. So
yeah.
Throughout there, it also makes sense in terms of like trying to hit those emerging markets to have the manufacturing being done in those markets as well. So I know that there are some Taiwanese manufacturers that they have as well there. But with the Foxconn partnership, if they can leverage it specifically for all-touch type low-end devices, and then focus with Samsung maybe on the part side, as you mentioned, for the higher end, if they can create a good duality there and be able to service their customers while maintaining low inventory risks overall. Definitely some interesting stuff.
I'm also thinking of this maybe I don't know, does Samsung, do they build everything in-house, or do they maybe outsource some of their hardware out to other companies to manufacture as well? Because if that's the case, I mean, then you could theoretically have Foxconn building Samsung devices with BlackBerry 10 on them, or BlackBerry devices with Samsung parts on them, I guess.
But
I
made in
don't
Canada.
know.
I'm just kidding.
Designed in Canada.
Designed in Canada, built in Taiwan, manufactured by Chinese. a little eclectic mix of everything to finally make these BB10 devices. I think that's what Alex wants at the end of the day. All he wants is for BB10 devices to keep getting made in one form or another.
Yeah.
It's just as I look at things like the BlackBerry Experience Suite, and I look at kind of the overall strategy that BlackBerry's taking forward. I'm not sure what role BlackBerry 10 is going to play in all of it. I really don't, because it seems that they're taking a lot of those core services over to other platforms anyway.
Yeah.
You don't think it devalues kind of what they're going for in terms of their hardware business?
I don't know. I guess it kind of does. It's a difficult thing that we'll kind of see over time. I don't know.
Because if what Blaze is alluding to happens, and they do take on a different chipset, and they're able to securely boot on that chipset, it really it looks at you take the Qualcomm deal right now, and now you're wondering about what they're going to do with these different devices. Are they going to have some device lines that are one SOC and some device lines that are another? It's just I wonder where they're going to overall take that strategy, because then they're going to take their core native software and put it onto these other platforms that they've built an OS to be and run securely on. So are they going to utilize that for Android, or are they going to kind of bring in some more BlackBerry experiences? It's definitely going to be a hodgepodge. I know if Jeremy was here, he's all doomsday about
Yeah.
BlackBerry falling to the rise of Android on BlackBerry devices. So I'm looking forward to it. Steven, would you give up BB10 for an Android device that can run securely?
Maybe, maybe, maybe because oh, I can install the Play Store on my phone, but you know, thousands of apps are not on the BlackBerry world. So maybe if Android device for large public use the same security and the same productivity tools like as BlackBerry, I can make the switch, but I need my physical keyboard.
You know, honestly, at the end of the day, what I see is I tried to use my buddy's iPhone recently. Just I had to, whether he was driving and I had to like text someone for him and whatever was going on, and just the fact of the paradigm, how you have to click the button to minimize the app and then tap it twice to see the apps and then swipe up to remove them. I just felt so slow, and I don't care how quick my muscle memory was. The fact that you have to be clicking this physical button to do all this stuff, and I don't think I would ever be able to go to Android or iOS simply because the gestures. I'm too in love with that and not having buttons or physical things I need to tap. So if BlackBerry brought Android over enough where I can still have the workflow of the gestures, then fine, I'll take an Android system like that. But if you just said secure Android, it's still kind of iffy because it's really the gestures is what I'm in love with, the hub and these things. So if they could do this properly, then I'd move over.
What if BlackBerry built a proper Android QWERTY device? Because apparently nobody in the Android world wants to do that. So, and they've all every QWERTY device that has ever been built for Android has been basically considered subpar or has been underpowered or underspec, whatever the case may be. Nobody has gone out and built a good QWERTY Android device. But BlackBerry was able to go ahead and do that and still make it feel like a BlackBerry 10 device.
I think honestly, if there was an Android device that brought some of the best things about BlackBerry 10 to the fold there, and BlackBerry 10 wasn't an option, you would see people that would be fine with that shift. There's going to be always those hardcore people who just don't like Android or iOS, and they really like BlackBerry 10. But I think for the majority of people, if they brought over the hub and some of those other key aspects of BlackBerry 10 that they could experience on their Android device or iOS device, I think a lot of people would be content with that. and I think really what really defines a BlackBerry 10 or BlackBerry device for me is just that the functionality aspect of the device and the OS, and it's really, I like it because I can't get that functionality anywhere else. If that functionality was provided on other platforms, I would be using those platforms.
Hmm.
So I mean, if that functionality is there, I'll use it and I'll be fine. But as it stands, BlackBerry 10 has all that functionality, and it's just a matter of them maybe being able to translate that over to other operating systems if they were to go down that
Yeah,
path.
there are reasons that we're on BlackBerry 10 devices. We're not on BlackBerry 10 devices because we love the company and we're trying to be like save the company, use them. It's because the workflow and the hub and the gestures, like it's no other, software is doing it like that. And I feel it's so weird that people just tear like the apps up and say there are no apps and how the heck could you be on a platform without apps? Because there's more to a phone than just apps. And just the integrated apps that BlackBerry has in the phone, it's just so much more that it's just a tough thing. Once if we just get Android integrated a little bit more, and if apps weren't that problem, I think a lot more people would go to BlackBerry because
Yeah.
Android really it's just not that great of an experience compared to BlackBerry 10. Just the
Right.
the
And
flow.
I've mentioned this before, earlier in like one of our earliest podcasts, is that if you look at game consoles, there's a whole bunch of games that are ported to game consoles and are actually built for like a PC or something else, but they run just fine on a
Yep.
game console. And I mean, if we could see that with Android apps on BlackBerry 10, that would suffice, I think, for a lot of people.
It's such a tricky road. Android devices, BlackBerry 10, Android.
Definitely going to be an interesting road ahead for them because they really are betting on security at the end of the day. That is their stake as they move forward. So it's going to
Which
be it's going to come down to what's more lucrative, right? That's their focus. They want to make money.
But security is such a good spot that like I don't think people even realize how good of a spot that is because the in 10 years from now when technology is ingrained into our lives, when people start implementing freaking like chips into their eyeballs or their brain or whatever, wouldn't you be worried about getting hacked and someone freaking controlling your brain? Like security at the end of the day, like I'm not even
Wow.
kidding. Like when they become a part of us, when they're in our car, integrated with our house, you walk in the door, allow me to it senses the chip in my arm so I could unlock the door. People hacking that is a really scary thing the closer we get with technology. So security at the end of the day is so unbelievably important,
You're
but
right.
not until we realize, what's going on with all of this.
I can't wait till the Apple launches the Eye. It's just going to be a totally digital eye. It talks to Siri. Imagine if you had
Oh,
blue screen of death on your eyeball. I mean, that'd be awful. Hopefully we don't get there. Microsoft doesn't need to be an embedded.
I hope the fake patch will be ready for my eye. My integrated eye chip.
You have a fake eye and then a virtual reality eye patch. Definitely some interesting stuff moving ahead. The Secu tablet, I think, is a very interesting off the Samsung Galaxy tablet. I think I have one of those actually. I've never used it for anything but Blend, but I do have one. Now I just got to go buy a $2,500 chip, toss it in there, see how it works. And I think we've covered all the topics that we needed to cover this week, guys. I really appreciate having you guys on, as always. Alex, Brandon, Chris, and as well Steven. It was great having you out for
yeah.
one of our Upstream sessions. We definitely should make it a little bit more regular. Maybe we can work on some days and move the time up. So you're
So
not
you're gonna fall asleep.
Forgive my accent.
No, you're good, man.
It'll be a good experience for you.
Yes, very fascinating.
Pleasure to meet you, Steven.
Yeah. Yep.
We'll put some links on the BerryFlow site, so definitely check out his website. I really, really like their content. I've translated some of the site over just so I could read the articles, so I have it set up as a little toggle. Press the button and it goes straight through Google so I can read them in English. Definitely lots of real cool stuff, and I love some of the images you guys take for your site and for your social media, so definitely keep it up. Love the content that you guys are putting out.
Thank you. Really enjoy the BerryFlow BlackBerry website also.
Crackberry is my favorite, I'm telling you.
Dude, I have to tell you
That
about
Blaze
this.
guy's great.
I have to tell you about this post. So there was this one guy. I won't mention any names or anything like that. There's this one guy who always asks for help, and apparently he ended up going in and he asked for help the other night. And he made his post, and he asked a question in his post, and then in his post, his actual post, he just put the word feather. And I'm like, what? That was his post. I'm like, I don't understand. Well, why? Why feather? Like, and he was expecting a reply, like, for somebody to go ahead and help him, and I'm just like looking at it. I'm like, why feather? Feather?
So like his
Understand.
so like the thread title was the question, and then the actual content was feather.
Yeah, like because it doesn't allow you to have no content, so he just decided to type in feather. I'm like, really?
He put a question mark right behind the feather. He's like, feather?
Feather.
I'm gonna go answer his question now.
Yeah.
Anyway, guys, have a great rest of your evening. We'll see you guys next week. Hopefully, we'll be able to talk a little bit about some more impending news. I think we're going to hear a little bit more from SecuSMART this coming week, so we'll stay tuned for that.
Yep.
Take care, guys. Cheers.
Take care.
Good night.